The Mafia Boss had a perfect wedding planned, a powerful name to protect, and a future everyone admired. But he never realized the one person who understood him the most was standing quietly beside him every single day. Nathaniel Carter had built his entire life around control. As the leader of a powerful organization in Chicago, he was known for his intelligence, discipline, and ability to handle any situation with confidence. Every decision was carefully planned, every detail was considered, and every person around him had a specific role. To the outside world, Nathaniel appeared to have everything a person could want. He had wealth, influence, respect, and a wedding approaching that many considered the perfect match for someone of his position. But behind the carefully arranged image, Nathaniel carried a feeling he could never explain. Something always seemed missing. His days were filled with meetings, responsibilities, and endless expectations. People respected his name, but very few people truly knew him. The one person who seemed to understand him was Olivia Bennett, his personal assistant. For 6 years, Olivia had been the person who kept his complicated schedule organized, remembered the smallest details, and made sure everything ran smoothly. She knew when he needed a quiet moment before an important meeting. She knew which decisions required more time. She knew the habits he never shared with anyone else. Yet Nathaniel rarely stopped to think about the woman behind the work. To him, Olivia was dependable, professional, and incredibly capable. She was the person who helped him succeed, but he never considered the possibility that she had a life and story beyond her role as his assistant. Olivia was different from the people Nathaniel usually encountered. She never tried to impress him. She never used his position to gain advantages. She never asked for special treatment. Whether she was helping him prepare for a major meeting or handling simple daily tasks, she always approached everything with patience and dedication. Some people underestimated her because of her quiet personality and her position. They saw an assistant. Nathaniel saw someone reliable, but he had not yet discovered how much more there was to her. Meanwhile, preparations for his wedding continued. Everything looked perfect on paper. The venue was chosen, the guests were invited, and every detail matched the image of success expected from someone like Nathaniel Carter. Yet whenever Olivia handed him another schedule update or reminded him about another responsibility, he noticed something he could not ignore. She was often the only person who spoke to him like he was simply a person, not a title. She did not treat him like someone untouchable. She treated him like someone who had good days, difficult days, and moments of uncertainty. Nathaniel did not understand why that mattered to him. He had spent years believing emotions should never interfere with decisions. But everything began to change on an ordinary afternoon when he made a choice that would reveal a side of Olivia he had never seen before. He decided to visit her home unexpectedly, thinking it would be a simple conversation about work. He expected to see the same quiet assistant he knew from the office. Instead, he was about to discover a truth that would make him question everything he believed about the people closest to him. The unexpected visit was supposed to be a simple moment between a boss and his assistant, but Nathaniel Carter was about to discover that the person he thought he knew was only showing him a small part of her life. After a long day of meetings and wedding preparations, Nathaniel found himself looking at the address Olivia Bennett had listed for an emergency contact. He had a few documents that required clarification, and instead of sending another message, he decided to stop by personally. It was not something he normally did. Nathaniel was a man who valued distance and professionalism. He rarely entered the personal lives of the people who worked around him. But something about Olivia's quiet dedication had made him curious. When he arrived at her neighborhood, he expected a simple apartment and a quiet evening. What he saw instead made him pause. Olivia lived in a modest but carefully maintained home filled with warmth and personality. It was completely different from the corporate environment where he usually saw her. The space reflected someone who cared deeply about the people around her. There were signs of creativity, organization, and years of thoughtful effort in every corner. Nathaniel immediately noticed something important. Olivia was not living a life waiting for someone to rescue her. She had built a life with patience and determination. Before he could knock, he saw Olivia helping an elderly neighbor carry a few bags inside. She was smiling, listening, and offering her time without expecting anything in return. Nathaniel watched quietly for a moment because it revealed a side of her he had never witnessed at work. In his world, many people were kind when someone important was watching. Olivia was kind when nobody was paying attention. When she finally noticed him standing outside, she looked surprised. "Mr. Carter, is everything all right?" she asked. Nathaniel explained that he needed to discuss a few work details, but even he knew that was not the real reason he stayed. He was curious. He wanted to understand the person behind the assistant who had spent 6 years helping him manage his complicated life. As they talked, Nathaniel noticed how different Olivia was outside the office. She was more relaxed, more confident, and surrounded by people who clearly respected her. They did not treat her as someone ordinary. They treated her as someone valuable. That realization stayed with him. At the office, he had seen Olivia as someone who supported his success. Here, he saw that she had created her own kind of success. She had relationships, purpose, and a reputation built through kindness rather than influence. During their conversation, Nathaniel noticed a collection of certificates and notes displayed on a shelf. They showed achievements and moments he had never heard about. Olivia explained that she had always enjoyed learning, helping others, and creating opportunities for people around her. She had never mentioned these things because she did not believe they were relevant to her job. Nathaniel was surprised. He had spent years surrounded by people who wanted him to notice their accomplishments. Olivia had accomplishments and never asked for recognition. That difference affected him more than he expected. When he left her home that evening, Nathaniel found himself thinking about everything he had missed. The woman he considered his assistant had a story far greater than the role he had assigned to her. And for the first time, he wondered how many other people around him he had failed to truly see. The visit to Olivia Bennett's home stayed on Nathaniel Carter's mind longer than he expected. He had entered her neighborhood believing he would simply handle a work matter and leave. Instead, he walked away with a completely different understanding of the woman who had been beside him for 6 years. For the first time, Nathaniel realized he had only known Olivia through the responsibilities she managed, not through the person she truly was. The following morning, Nathaniel returned to his usual routine, but something felt different. As Olivia organized his schedule and prepared the documents for the day, he found himself paying attention to details he had ignored before. He noticed how carefully she considered every decision, how she remembered small preferences, and how naturally she solved problems before they became complicated. These were not just skills of an assistant. They were signs of someone with remarkable awareness and dedication. Nathaniel began wondering how many times Olivia had helped him succeed without receiving any recognition. During a business meeting later that week, Nathaniel heard several people discuss his upcoming wedding and the image it represented. They talked about appearances, connections, and how perfectly everything seemed arranged. Usually, Nathaniel would have accepted those conversations without question. But now, he found himself thinking about something Olivia had said during their visit. She had mentioned that meaningful things were not always the things people noticed first. That simple idea remained in his thoughts. He started comparing the relationships in his life. Many people around him knew his position, his influence, and his reputation. Very few people knew his habits, his worries, or the moments when he needed understanding instead of advice. Olivia had known those things for years, not because she wanted anything from him, but because she genuinely cared about doing her job well. One afternoon, Nathaniel noticed Olivia staying late to complete a project that was important for the company. He asked why she had taken on extra work when nobody required her to do so. Olivia looked surprised by the question. "Because it matters," she answered simply. "If something has my name connected to it, I want it to be done properly." Nathaniel remembered those words. In his world, people often worked harder when they expected a reward. Olivia worked hard because she believed in responsibility. That difference made him see her in a new way. Later, Nathaniel learned more about Olivia's past. She had faced challenges that could have made her give up, but she had continued moving forward. She had built her confidence slowly through patience, education, and determination. She never spoke about these experiences to gain sympathy. She spoke about them only when they were relevant. Nathaniel respected that more than he could explain. The woman he once thought of as someone who supported his goals was actually someone who had created her own path long before he noticed her. As the days passed, Nathaniel began questioning the choices he had made about his future. The wedding plans continued moving forward, but the certainty he once felt was no longer the same. He began to understand that a perfect image could still hide an imperfect reality. Meanwhile, Olivia remained the same person she had always been. She did not seek his attention, and she did not try to change his decisions. She simply continued being honest, capable, and kind. That was what affected Nathaniel the most. The person who had the least interest in impressing him was becoming the person he respected the most. The closer Nathaniel Carter looked at his life, the more he realized how much of it had been built around expectations. Every decision had been influenced by what others considered appropriate for a man in his position. His company, his reputation, and even his upcoming wedding had all been carefully arranged to represent success. But after seeing Olivia Bennett's life outside the office, he started questioning whether a perfect image was the same thing as a fulfilling life. Nathaniel had always believed that emotions could create distractions. He preferred clear plans, logical choices, and predictable outcomes. Yet Olivia had introduced uncertainty into a world he thought he completely understood. She did not challenge him with arguments or demands. She simply showed him a different way of seeing people. As the wedding preparations continued, Nathaniel found himself becoming more distant from the excitement surrounding the event. The conversations about decorations, guest lists, and appearances felt less meaningful than they once had. He listened as people discussed how impressive everything would look, but he kept thinking about Olivia's quiet confidence and the way she valued substance over attention. Meanwhile, Olivia continued working as if nothing had changed. She did not act differently around Nathaniel after his unexpected visit. She still arrived on time, handled her responsibilities, and treated everyone with the same respect. That consistency made Nathaniel notice her even more. He expected her to become uncomfortable or seek recognition after he learned more about her life. Instead, she remained focused on her own goals. One day, Nathaniel asked Olivia about a project she had been working on outside of her assistant duties. He had noticed her dedication and wanted to understand what motivated her. Olivia explained that she had always wanted to create opportunities for people who were often overlooked. She believed everyone deserved a chance to show their abilities. Nathaniel found that answer interesting because it reflected something he had recently started feeling himself. He had spent years surrounded by talented people, but he often judged them by their position rather than their potential. Olivia had quietly changed that perspective. She had shown him that someone's current situation did not define their future. A few days later, Nathaniel attended a wedding planning meeting. Everyone around him spoke confidently about the life he was about to begin. They described the event as a symbol of everything he had achieved. But for the first time, Nathaniel wondered if the life being celebrated was truly the life he wanted. He thought about Olivia and how she had never tried to impress him. She never asked for opportunities, never used their connection for personal gain, and never expected anything in return. That honesty became impossible to ignore. Nathaniel began to understand that the strongest connections were not created through status or convenience. They were created through trust, respect, and genuine understanding. The realization unsettled him because it forced him to look honestly at his choices. He had spent years building a powerful life, but he had not asked whether it was built around what he truly valued. Olivia had not entered his world trying to change him. She had simply lived according to her own principles. And somehow, that quiet authenticity was changing him more than anyone else ever had. As Nathaniel looked at the wedding plans in front of him, one question continued returning to his mind. Was he choosing this future because it was right for him, or because everyone expected him to? The days following Nathaniel Carter's doubts about his wedding brought a change that even he could not ignore. He continued attending meetings, reviewing plans, and handling his responsibilities, but his thoughts kept returning to the same question. Was he building the future he wanted, or was he simply following a path that had already been chosen for him? For years, Nathaniel had believed that success meant having everything arranged perfectly, but now he was beginning to understand that a life could appear complete while still missing something important. Olivia Bennett never knew how much her simple actions had affected him. She continued her work with the same dedication she always showed. She answered emails, organized schedules, and solved problems with the same calm attitude that had made her valuable for years. She did not notice that Nathaniel was seeing her differently. She did not realize that the qualities he once overlooked were becoming the very things he admired most. One afternoon, Nathaniel asked Olivia to join him for a conversation outside of their usual office routine. He wanted to thank her for everything she had done, but he also wanted to understand something that had been on his mind. "How do you stay so focused when nobody notices your effort?" he asked. Olivia thought carefully before answering. Because I know why I do things. Recognition is nice, but it cannot be the only reason someone works hard. Her response stayed with Nathaniel. He was surrounded by people who often measured success through attention, influence, and approval. Olivia measured success through purpose and personal growth. That difference made him realize how much he had learned from her without her ever trying to teach him. During their conversation, Olivia shared more about her dreams. She explained that she had always wanted to create something that helped people discover their abilities. She knew what it felt like to be underestimated, and she wanted others to have opportunities she once wished for herself. Nathaniel listened closely because her words connected with something he had recently started feeling. He had spent much of his life protecting his position, but he had rarely considered how many talented people remained unnoticed because nobody gave them a chance. The more he learned about Olivia, the more he respected her. She was not successful because someone powerful supported her. She was successful because she had built herself through patience, discipline, and kindness. Later that evening, Nathaniel attended another event connected to his upcoming wedding. Everyone around him celebrated the future they believed he was about to enter. They talked about appearances, connections, and the importance of maintaining a certain image. Nathaniel smiled politely, but inside he felt a growing distance from the conversation. He thought about Olivia's words and realized something uncomfortable. The people around him knew what he represented, but Olivia understood who he was. That difference became impossible to ignore. Nathaniel began looking back at the years he had spent with Olivia. He remembered countless moments when she had helped him through difficult decisions, managed stressful situations, and provided support without asking for anything in return. He had always considered those actions part of her job. Now he saw them differently. They were reflections of her character. As the wedding day approached, Nathaniel felt the pressure of a decision he could no longer avoid. He had a choice between protecting a perfect image and accepting an honest truth. For the first time in many years, Nathaniel Carter was not thinking about what others expected from him. He was thinking about what truly mattered. The closer the wedding day came, the more Nathaniel Carter felt the weight of the decision in front of him. For most of his life, he had been certain that the right choice was the one that protected his reputation and maintained stability. He had built his position by understanding expectations and meeting them before anyone had to ask. But now, for the first time, he was facing a choice where success could not be measured by appearances. It had to be measured by honesty. Nathaniel continued observing the world around him with a different perspective. He noticed how many people valued Olivia Bennett only when they needed something from her. They appreciated her organization, her patience, and her ability to solve problems, but they rarely asked about her own goals. Nathaniel realized he had been doing the same thing. He had benefited from her dedication for years without fully understanding the person who provided it. That realization stayed with him. One morning, Nathaniel found Olivia preparing documents before an important meeting. He noticed a small notebook beside her computer filled with detailed plans and ideas. Curious, he asked what she was working on. Olivia hesitated at first because she was not used to discussing her personal ambitions at work. She explained that she had been developing ideas for a community project focused on helping people gain new skills and confidence. Nathaniel was impressed by how much thought she had already invested. She had created plans, researched possibilities, and considered ways to make a meaningful difference. She had done all of this quietly, without asking anyone for support or recognition. "Why did you never tell me about this?" Nathaniel asked. Olivia smiled gently. "Because I did not want people to see me differently because of my dreams. I wanted them to see my work first." Her answer revealed something important about her character. Olivia did not want attention before she had earned trust. She valued actions more than words. Nathaniel understood that this was one of the reasons he respected her so deeply. As he reflected on Olivia's mindset, he began thinking about his own upcoming marriage. He realized that much of the relationship was built around expectations from others. The event represented success, but he was no longer sure it represented happiness. He started asking himself questions he had avoided for years. Did the people closest to him understand his true personality? Did they care about his thoughts and fears, or only the image associated with his name? Those questions were difficult because the answers were becoming clear. Meanwhile, Olivia remained unaware of the internal struggle Nathaniel was experiencing. She never tried to influence his decisions. She continued supporting his work because professionalism mattered to her. That honesty made Nathaniel admire her even more. She had every opportunity to use their connection for personal gain, but she never did. She respected boundaries and valued her independence. Nathaniel began to understand that the most meaningful people in life are often the ones who ask for the least. Olivia had never demanded his attention. She had never asked him to change. Yet her presence had changed the way he viewed everything around him. The man who once believed he could control every outcome was learning that some truths cannot be ignored forever. As the final wedding preparations moved forward, Nathaniel knew he could no longer pretend everything was perfect. The decision ahead would affect many people, but for the first time, he was ready to choose based on what was real rather than what simply looked right. The day Nathaniel Carter finally admitted the truth to himself was quieter than anyone expected. There was no dramatic moment, no public announcement, and no sudden change that the world could immediately notice. Instead, it began with a simple realization that he could no longer ignore. For years, Nathaniel had built his life around responsibility and expectation. He believed that keeping promises and protecting his image were the signs of a successful man. But now he understood that a promise made without honesty could never create a meaningful future. As the final wedding preparations continued, Nathaniel found himself looking at every detail differently. The elegant venue, the carefully planned arrangements, and the expectations surrounding the event all represented a life that looked perfect from the outside. Yet inside, he felt a growing certainty that something important was missing. He thought about Olivia Bennett and the way she had changed his understanding of what truly mattered. Olivia never tried to become part of his world. She never chased his attention or used their connection for personal advantage. She simply lived with integrity, and that was something Nathaniel had rarely encountered. Before making any decision, Nathaniel wanted to be certain that he was not acting on temporary emotions. He spent time reflecting on his relationship, his choices, and the person he had become. He realized that he had spent so many years becoming someone others respected that he had forgotten to ask whether he respected himself. During a conversation with Olivia, Nathaniel finally opened up about the uncertainty he had been carrying. He did not reveal every detail, but he admitted that he was questioning whether he had been making choices based on his own happiness or simply following a path created by others. Olivia listened carefully, just as she always did. She did not tell him what decision to make. She did not encourage him to choose one path over another. Instead, she reminded him of something simple. The most important choices are the ones you can live with honestly, she said. Those words stayed with Nathaniel. Olivia had once again given him perspective without trying to control the outcome. She respected his ability to make his own decisions, and that respect meant more to him than he expected. Nathaniel began to understand that this was what separated genuine connection from convenience. A real connection did not demand control. It allowed people to be honest with themselves. When Nathaniel finally spoke with those responsible for the wedding plans, he made a decision that surprised many people around him. He chose to step away from a future that no longer felt authentic. It was not an easy choice because he knew others would have opinions. But for the first time, he prioritized truth over appearance. The decision changed the way people viewed him. Some questioned why he would walk away from something that seemed so perfect. But Nathaniel understood something they did not. A perfect image meant nothing if it was built on a life that did not feel genuine. Olivia learned about his decision later, and her reaction was not what Nathaniel expected. She did not celebrate or assume it meant something more. She simply reminded him that every person deserved the chance to choose their own path. That response showed Nathaniel once again why she was different. She was not waiting to receive something from him. She was simply being herself. And that was exactly what had changed everything. After Nathaniel Carter made the decision to step away from the wedding, he expected his life to become more complicated. He knew there would be questions, misunderstandings, and people who would not understand why he walked away from something that appeared perfect. But what surprised him the most was the feeling of peace that followed. For the first time in years, Nathaniel felt like his choices belonged to him. He was no longer making decisions based only on reputation, expectations, or what others believed was best. He was finally listening to his own thoughts and values. Olivia Bennett continued living her life exactly as she always had. She did not suddenly become more comfortable around Nathaniel or act differently because of his decision. She remained focused on her goals, her work, and the people who depended on her. That was one of the reasons Nathaniel respected her so much. She never tried to take advantage of a difficult moment in his life. She never treated his change of plans as an opportunity for herself. Instead, she gave him the space to understand what he truly wanted. Nathaniel realized that this was rare. Many people around him were interested in what his name could provide. Olivia was interested in who he was as a person. As time passed, Nathaniel began supporting Olivia's personal project more openly. He did not take control of it or make decisions for her. Instead, he offered guidance when she asked and resources when they were needed. He understood that helping someone did not mean creating dependence. True support meant giving someone the freedom to build something of their own. Olivia appreciated that difference. She had spent much of her life proving that she was capable, and she did not want anyone to mistake support for saving. She wanted partnership, not rescue. One evening, Nathaniel and Olivia talked about how much had changed. They sat in a quiet restaurant away from the attention that usually surrounded Nathaniel's life. For once, he was not viewed as a powerful figure. He was simply a man having an honest conversation with someone he trusted. "You know what I realized?" Nathaniel said. "I spent so much time looking for people who could help me maintain my life that I forgot to look for people who could help me understand it." Olivia smiled because she understood exactly what he meant. Nathaniel had always been surrounded by people, but very few had created a space where he could be completely honest. Their connection was different because it was built on respect. Neither of them needed to prove anything. Neither of them needed to impress the other. As Nathaniel continued changing, he also became more aware of how people were treated within his organization. He started recognizing the contributions of individuals who were often overlooked. He listened more carefully and valued effort that previously went unnoticed. Olivia had influenced him without ever trying to change him. She showed him that leadership was not only about making decisions. It was also about understanding the people affected by those decisions. Meanwhile, Olivia continued pursuing her dreams. She knew her journey was still beginning, and she remained committed to building something meaningful. She was proud of how far she had come, but she never forgot the lessons that shaped her. Nathaniel admired that about her. She had every reason to seek attention after everything that happened, but she chose to stay grounded. He finally understood that the person who changed his future was never someone trying to enter his world. She was someone who reminded him to see the world differently. And as their lives continued moving forward, Nathaniel knew one thing with certainty. The most valuable discovery he made was not about changing his plans. It was about discovering the person who helped him become a better version of himself. Months after Nathaniel Carter made the decision to choose honesty over expectation, he looked back at his journey with a different understanding of success. For most of his life, he believed success was measured by influence, reputation, and the ability to control every detail. But the experiences that changed him the most came from a person who never tried to gain anything from him. Olivia Bennett entered his life as his assistant, someone he believed was simply there to support his goals. Over time, he discovered that she was much more than the role he had assigned to her. She was someone with dreams, values, and a strength that came from years of perseverance. Olivia continued developing her own projects and creating opportunities for others who often felt overlooked. She never forgot where she started, and she never allowed new opportunities to change the person she was. Nathaniel admired that quality because it reminded him of something he had forgotten. A person's circumstances did not determine their worth. Their choices did. The relationship between Nathaniel and Olivia continued growing through trust and understanding. They did not rush to create a perfect image for others to admire. Instead, they focused on building something real. They learned that meaningful connections were not created by status, wealth, or appearances. They were created through respect, honesty, and the willingness to truly understand another person. Nathaniel also changed the way he viewed his own responsibilities. As someone with significant influence, he realized that leadership was not only about making decisions that benefited himself. It was about recognizing the people who helped create success and making sure their efforts were valued. The lessons Olivia showed him became part of the way he approached every area of his life. One afternoon, Nathaniel visited Olivia's workspace and watched as she guided a small team working on her community project. He noticed the same qualities he had admired from the beginning. She listened carefully, encouraged others, and made everyone feel important. She was not trying to be the person with the most attention. She was focused on helping others discover their own potential. Nathaniel smiled because he finally understood why he had been drawn to her character. Olivia represented everything he had been missing. She reminded him that success without purpose could feel empty, while even a small action with genuine meaning could create a lasting impact. When Olivia asked him what he had learned from everything that happened, Nathaniel gave an honest answer. I learned that the people we overlook are sometimes the people who have the most to teach us. Olivia appreciated those words because they represented how much he had changed. The man who once judged the world through power and position had learned to recognize value in places he never expected. Their story was not about one person changing another. It was about two people discovering a better understanding of themselves through an unexpected connection. Nathaniel found a future built on truth instead of appearances. Olivia found confirmation that her quiet dedication had always mattered, even when others failed to notice. The biggest transformation was not the change in their circumstances. It was the change in how they viewed life. Nathaniel Carter had spent years searching for ways to protect everything he had built. Olivia Bennett showed him that the most important things in life were not always the things we protect. Sometimes, they were the things we discover when we finally take the time to see the person standing beside us.